If you've been quietly noticing changes in your performance, slower arousal, softer erections, or a general loss of sensitivity, you're not imagining it. And you're definitely not alone. What many men don't realize is that these issues don't always come down to age or hormones. In fact, one of the biggest influences on your sexual health might be something far more familiar and personal: the way you masturbate. It sounds surprising, maybe even uncomfortable to acknowledge, but the truth is that your private habits have a powerful impact on your physical responses. Over the years, the routine you've built can actually teach your body patterns that work against you. These patterns can reduce sensitivity, limit blood flow, and condition your brain to respond only to specific kinds of stimulation, making natural arousal harder than it should be. What makes this even more challenging is that men rarely talk about it. Most keep their struggles completely to themselves, convinced the issue is purely age or that it's something they simply have to accept. Meanwhile, they repeat the same 4 habits that slowly weaken performance. And because it happens gradually, the signs are easy to shrug off until things become noticeably harder, literally and figuratively. That's exactly why this conversation matters and why today's video is so important. We're going to walk through the 4 biggest masturbation mistakes men over 50 commonly make, the ones that quietly sabotage erections and sensitivity. More importantly, you'll learn how to reverse these habits and restore natural function. Before we begin, do me a quick favor. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I genuinely enjoy seeing men from all over the world join these discussions because the more open we are, the healthier and more confident we become. Now let's get into a truth that most men never hear. Erectile dysfunction isn't simply a number on your birthday cake. Yes, blood vessels stiffen with age, hormones evolve, and recovery takes a little longer, but those are only part of the story. The way you stimulate yourself, especially if it's been the same for decades, shapes your nervous system, your circulation, and even your hormonal responses. Your brain and body are learning machines. Every habit you repeat is a lesson they take seriously. If the lessons you're teaching your system rely on intensity, speed, or artificial stimulation, then your body starts expecting those conditions every time. And anything outside of that routine, like intimacy with a partner, or even self-pleasure without a device or a screen, feels unfamiliar, less stimulating, or simply not enough. Many common masturbation habits activate your system in ways that aren't natural. Over time, those habits reduce sensitivity, strain circulation, and condition your nerves to only respond to harsh or exaggerated stimulation. But here's the empowering part. Just as your system can learn habits that weaken performance, it can also unlearn them. And it can replace them with healthier patterns that strengthen blood flow, boost sensitivity, and support confidence. If you're new here, I'm Dr. Jocelyn. I'm a board-certified urologist, and I've spent 5 years helping men improve prostate health, sexual function, and hormonal balance. And believe me when I say this, you are not broken. You are not too old. You are not past your prime. You simply need to retrain your system so it works for you instead of against you. So let's begin with the first and most common mistake, depending on adult content every time you masturbate. Relying on adult content every time you masturbate may feel harmless, but it creates one of the most powerful forms of conditioning in the male nervous system. At first, it seems exciting, an endless library of novelty, fantasy, and intensity, available in seconds. But your brain was never designed to handle that level of stimulation on demand. Human arousal evolved around real-world cues: subtle touch, scent, imagination, emotional connection, anticipation, intimacy, and context. These natural signals unfold gradually. They're meant to build arousal slowly, allowing your nervous system, hormones, and blood vessels to respond in a synchronized, healthy way. But adult content flips that process upside down. Every time you watch, your brain is flooded with a surge of dopamine. And not just a little dopamine, the kind that comes from overwhelming novelty. With just a few clicks, you can change scenes, partners, scenarios, and acts faster than your brain can process. This creates an endless cycle of newness, something no real-life partner or natural moment can compete with. Over time, your brain begins to expect that constant intensity. You need more stimulation, more extremes, or longer sessions just to feel the same level of arousal you once achieved easily. This desensitization doesn't happen overnight, but it absolutely happens. Biologically, this pattern affects nitric oxide production too, the chemical responsible for dilating blood vessels and triggering healthy erections. Without natural nitric oxide release, blood flow weakens and erections become unstable. Emotionally, you may notice that real intimacy feels slower, less exciting, or even boring compared to what you're used to on a screen. And practically, this means that without that visual stimulation or when you're actually with a partner, your arousal becomes unpredictable. Erections fade, sensitivity drops, your confidence takes a hit. And the more often this happens, the more performance anxiety creeps in, reinforcing the cycle. The good news is that this is completely reversible. The brain is incredibly adaptable. With the right habits, you can resensitize your system and return to normal, natural arousal. How do you start? Step away from the screen. You don't have to quit forever, but you do need a reset. You need to teach your brain to respond to healthy, natural signals again. Instead of relying on visual stimulation, use your imagination. Replay a memory, focus on sensation, or simply allow your mind to wander. At first, it will feel awkward. You may not get the same intensity you're used to. That's normal. That's detox. But within a few weeks, your sensitivity returns. Erections become easier to maintain. Arousal feels organic again. Your brain is your strongest sexual organ, and when you retrain it, everything else follows. That brings us to mistake number 2, misusing edging. Now, edging itself is not a bad thing. When used correctly, it can help build stamina and control. But many men push edging far beyond what the body can handle. They push themselves right to the edge of climax and slam on the brakes. Then they repeat this over and over, sometimes for an hour or more. It feels intense, even empowering, but internally, your system is confused. One moment, your body thinks it's preparing for climax. The next moment, everything is abruptly shut down. Your pelvic floor muscles, which support erections and ejaculation, become exhausted. Your nerves stop firing normally. Blood flow becomes restricted because the erectile tissue repeatedly inflates and deflates without completing the natural cycle. This often leads to 2 outcomes, either trouble finishing at all or finishing far too quickly. Erections weaken, sensitivity decreases, and instead of gaining stamina, you lose it. The fix is simple. Practice balanced edging. Don't go right to the cliff. Pull back much earlier, while you still feel fully in control. Keep sessions short. 15 to 20 minutes is plenty. And always allow a natural release at the end. When you treat edging like training rather than a marathon, it strengthens your system instead of overwhelming it. Balanced edging is one of the most misunderstood sexual practices, especially among older men who assume that more intensity or longer sessions automatically translate to better performance. But the body doesn't work that way. Just like any muscle group, your sexual system responds best to controlled, consistent stimulation, not extremes. When you keep yourself at the absolute edge for too long, your pelvic floor muscles tighten excessively. These muscles are responsible for maintaining erections and controlling ejaculation. But when they're pushed into fatigue, they lose strength and coordination. This often leads to weaker erections, difficulty finishing, or a sudden loss of control that makes climax arrive far too quickly. The very thing men try to strengthen with excessive edging ends up getting weaker. That's why completing the natural cycle matters. The body expects a rhythm: build-up, sustained arousal, climax, and relaxation. When you repeatedly interrupt that rhythm at the highest point, the nervous system becomes overstimulated yet unsatisfied. Blood flow drops, oxygen delivery becomes inconsistent, and nerves stop transmitting signals with the same clarity. This creates a disconnect between desire and performance. But when you adopt balanced edging, backing off earlier, pacing yourself, and keeping sessions moderate, you retrain your system to maintain arousal smoothly and predictably. Your body learns control without confusion. Over time, your erections grow stronger, not strained. Your control improves, not collapses, and your overall experience becomes far more dependable. This brings us to mistake number 3, rushing the process. Many men don't realize how much their habits in their younger years shaped the way they approach pleasure now. In your 20 seconds, your physiology was different. Testosterone was overflowing. Blood vessels were elastic and responsive. Nerves fired sharply and quickly. You could rush through arousal, climax rapidly, and still bounce back with no noticeable impact. But as you age, your body requires a different approach. Blood vessels need more time to dilate. Nerves need gentler stimulation to fire correctly. The erectile tissue needs adequate oxygen to maintain firmness. When you rush now, the erectile chambers don't fully expand. Blood enters, but not deeply or consistently enough. Oxygen delivery is cut short. And when tissue is deprived of oxygen, even for short intervals, it gradually loses strength. Erections become less firm and fade more quickly. Climax feels muted or incomplete. Emotionally, this can be frustrating and discouraging. Physically, you start conditioning your body to expect short, weak responses. The upside is that the solution is incredibly simple. Slow down. A slower approach isn't just psychological, it's biological. Deep, steady breathing increases nitric oxide levels, which relaxes blood vessels and helps them open fully. That alone can dramatically improve erection quality. Relaxing your muscles, not tensing or clenching, improves blood circulation to the pelvic region. When you take your time, arousal builds in layers. Each layer reinforces the next, creating a stronger and more stable erection. This isn't about taking forever. It's about giving your body the space it needs to respond fully. Think of arousal like building a fire. You don't throw everything in at once and expect a strong, steady flame. You build it gradually, letting each spark catch. When you slow down, the warmth spreads, the intensity grows naturally, and the result is far more satisfying. You not only enjoy the moment more, but you also strengthen your system every time. Slowness becomes a form of training, rewiring your body to expect and deliver full performance. But there's another mistake that affects men of all ages, not just those over 50. One habit silently undermines sensitivity, blood flow, and confidence more than almost anything else. It's the infamous death grip, a pattern so common that many men don't realize how deeply it affects them. And that's exactly what we'll break down next. The death grip is one of the most common yet least discussed habits men develop, often without realizing how deeply it affects their sensitivity over time. In the moment, using a very tight grip or intense friction can feel powerful and stimulating. It delivers strong sensations quickly, and for many men, it becomes the fastest path to release. But inside the tissues and nerves, something else happens, something far less helpful. Constant, forceful pressure reduces blood flow to the area. When blood flow is restricted repeatedly, the delicate nerves that control sensation gradually adapt to that pressure. They start to register intense friction as normal, and anything lighter, like a partner's touch or natural contact, barely registers at all. This is why so many men find themselves able to finish alone, but struggling during intimacy. It's not that they lack attraction or desire, it's that their body has been trained to respond only to a very specific type of stimulation, and unfortunately, most of this happens slowly and silently over the years. By the time you notice reduced sensitivity or weaker erections, the habit has already reshaped your neural pathways. Emotionally, this can feel confusing and discouraging. Men often blame themselves or assume they've simply aged out of strong performance. In reality, the issue is mechanical and neurological, not a permanent flaw, and the solution is within reach. To start reversing this pattern, you need to lighten your touch. This shift may feel less intense at first, even underwhelming, but that's part of the healing process. You're retraining your nerves to respond to natural levels of pressure again. Varying your technique, slower movements, different rhythms, gentler stimulation helps reawaken the full range of sensations. Using lubrication can also reduce friction and protect the skin, allowing the nerves to reset without stress. Think of this not as lowering intensity, but as rehabbing a system that has been overworked and overstimulated for too long. Within weeks, many men notice clearer sensation, stronger responses, and a smoother transition between solo and partnered intimacy. The more consistently you lighten your approach, the faster your natural sensitivity returns. Just like any part of the body, nerves thrive with good circulation and gentler stimulation. Now that we've covered the 4 biggest mistakes overusing visual stimulation, extreme edging, rushing, and relying on an overly tight grip, it's time to connect the dots. Each of these habits affects specific parts of the sexual system, but together they create a pattern that weakens erections, reduces sensitivity, and erodes confidence. And because these habits often start early in life, they become automatic. Most men don't question them until they start experiencing changes later on. But here's the empowering truth. Your body can adapt in both directions. The same way it learned these habits, it can unlearn them. And when you begin to replace them with healthier patterns, your system responds surprisingly quickly. This isn't about perfection. It's about small, steady changes that send a clear message to your body. It's time to restore normal function. Start by stepping away from constant visual stimulation. Give your brain a chance to respond to natural cues again. Practice balanced edging, not extremes, not long sessions, but controlled, intentional training. Slow down, breathe deeply, and let arousal build in a way that supports full blood flow. And lighten your touch so your nerves have room to heal. These steps aren't about restriction, they're about recovery. When you make these shifts, you reactivate the systems that support firm erections, steady arousal, and deeper pleasure. You regain sensitivity, you restore confidence, and you reconnect with the natural rhythm that intimacy was always meant to have. But to truly transform your performance, you need a clear roadmap that ties all these changes together, and that's exactly what we'll expand on next. Now that you understand the 4 core habits that undermine your sexual performance, it's time to bring all of this together into a simple, powerful roadmap, one that restores sensitivity, strengthens erections, and rebuilds your confidence from the inside out. Think of this as recalibrating your system, giving your body the chance to return to the way it was designed to function. None of these changes require medications, devices, or complicated routines. What they require is consistency, patience, and a clear understanding of how your body responds to stimulation. Start with the first shift, stepping away from constant adult content. This single change alone can have a dramatic impact. When you give your brain time away from overstimulation, you reawaken natural desire. You start to feel aroused by your own imagination again. Real touch begins to feel meaningful. Small cues like anticipation, scent, or even a memory start to spark arousal the way they once did. This happens because your dopamine levels begin to rebalance. You no longer need extreme novelty to feel excitement. Your brain regains the ability to respond to simple, authentic signals. At first, this may feel unfamiliar, even boring compared to the hyperintensity of a screen. But within weeks, that shifted baseline becomes your new strength. You respond faster, more naturally, and without the dependency that artificial stimulation creates. The second shift is practicing balanced edging. Instead of pushing yourself to the brink repeatedly, allow your body to experience arousal in a stable, controlled way. Edging becomes training rather than punishment. You build stamina without exhausting your pelvic floor. You strengthen your ability to stay aroused without overwhelming your nerves. And by ending with a natural release rather than holding back until exhaustion, you give your body a clear completion cycle. This reinforces healthy firing patterns, helps regulate hormone release, and improves circulation to the erectile tissue. It's the difference between training for endurance and simply burning yourself out. Next comes the shift that surprises many men with its simplicity, slowing down. When you take your time, you allow your body to warm up properly. Deep breathing increases nitric oxide, relaxing blood vessels and improving circulation with each inhale. Relaxed muscles allow blood to move freely into the erectile chambers. When arousal builds slowly, sensitivity increases. Your system stays balanced rather than jumping from 0 to 100 in seconds. This isn't just about prolonging the experience, it's about teaching your body how to respond fully and consistently. The more you practice this, the more you condition your body to produce firm, steady erections naturally. Finally, lighten your touch. Think of it as giving your nerves room to breathe. When you reduce pressure and vary your technique, you restore natural sensitivity. This doesn't just help during solo sessions. It dramatically improves partnered intimacy, because your body no longer relies on an unrealistic level of intensity. Lubrication helps protect the skin while encouraging smoother, gentler movements, perfect conditions for nerve recovery. Over time, your body relearns how to derive pleasure from subtle cues instead of overwhelming force. Together, these four shifts form a powerful foundation. They work because they address the root causes, not just the symptoms of weakened performance. Most sexual dysfunction doesn't come from age alone. It comes from habits that condition your system in ways you never intended. But when you start retraining your body in healthier ways, changes happen faster than most men expect. Erections become firmer. Arousal becomes more responsive. Climax feels more satisfying. And, perhaps most importantly, your confidence returns. Imagine looking forward to intimacy without hesitation or worry. Imagine feeling proud of your performance, connected to your partner, and in control of your body again. This is entirely achievable. You're not too old. You're not past your peak. You've simply been practicing habits that lead your system in the wrong direction. But the body is adaptable. It's ready to relearn. All it needs is for you to take the first step. And that leads us into the final part, your mindset, your commitment, and the challenge that can transform your performance starting tonight. At this point, you've learned not only the four major habits that silently weaken your sexual performance, but also the simple shifts that can reverse them. Now it's time to focus on the part that often matters most, the mindset that drives lasting change. Because even with the right strategy, progress only happens when you commit to taking action. Many men hear advice like this, nod along, and think, yeah, that makes sense, only to fall back into the same routines out of comfort or habit. But if you want to restore your vitality, if you want stronger erections, deeper pleasure, and a renewed sense of confidence, you must make a conscious decision to start changing the patterns that have been holding you back. And I want you to really understand this. Struggling does not mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're weak. And it certainly doesn't mean you've reached an age where decline is inevitable. What it means is that your body has been following a training program you never meant to create. Every habit you've practiced, whether it was rushing through the moment, relying on intense visuals, gripping too tightly, or overstimulating your system with extreme edging, has conditioned your body to respond in certain ways. But the same way those patterns were learned, they can be unlearned. Your body is adaptable. Your nerves can reset. Your circulation can improve. Your sensitivity can return. This is not wishful thinking, it's physiology. Imagine the shift that happens when you begin applying even one of the principles we covered. Let's say tonight, you decide to slow down. You breathe deeply, relax your muscles, and let your arousal build gradually. For the first time in a long time, you give your body permission to respond naturally. And it does. Maybe it's subtle at first, slightly better sensitivity, a bit more firmness, less tension and struggle. But the moment you feel that change, your mind starts to reset too. You begin to trust your body again. You start looking forward to intimacy rather than worrying about whether you'll perform the way you want to. Or maybe you choose to step away from the screen. Those first few days might feel different, even challenging, but then something shifts. You find your imagination sparking again. A simple memory brings real arousal. Your body begins to respond to touch in a deeper, more familiar way. This is your system waking up after years of overstimulation. And think about what happens when you lighten your grip. At first, the sensations may feel muted compared to what you're used to, but slowly your nerves begin to heal. Within weeks, your sensitivity grows sharper. The gap between solo pleasure and partnered intimacy narrows. Your confidence rises because your body feels reliable again. Every change you make reinforces the message your body needs to hear. I'm investing in my vitality. And the more consistently you send that message, the faster your system responds. This brings us to your challenge. Out of everything you've learned today, choose one change, just one, and begin tonight. It doesn't matter which one you choose. What matters is motion, because once you take that first step, the rest becomes easier. Your body follows your lead. Your habits start to shift. Your confidence builds momentum. And over time, you'll notice real physical improvements, firmer erections, richer sensitivity, more satisfying climax, and the return of a confidence you may not have felt in years. This isn't about chasing youth or trying to be someone you once were. It's about reclaiming the strength, pleasure, and connection that are still fully available to you right now. If today's video helped you understand these patterns and how to fix them, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe for more men's health guidance, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Your health matters, your confidence matters, your pleasure matters, and you deserve to feel strong, capable, and connected in your body again. I'm Dr. Jocelyn, and I'll see you in the next video.